Hello. How can I can't live up to that that opening. So yeah, just a little intro video there. Some candid pictures that I found of not too candid of Robin Askwith, and this is a little stream that I'm going to do a little talk about the Confessions box set commentaries that I recently finished watching all of them. Obviously, I'd seen the films before, but I went through all these special features. Maybe you can see if I can get it to zoom in. Yeah, there's a lot of special features on each one. So for all four films, there is a lot of special features. I'm just wondering where my third one is. It seems to have disappeared. I thought the book, because there's a big chunky book here, and I didn't realize. I don't know what I've done with one of the films. Anyway, I'll find that later on. But that won't stop me. And then also some of the funniest anecdotes that I found from the Confessions of Robin Askwith autobiography, which I've just about finished. I've got a couple of pages left to go, but I couldn't wait to share some of the funny things that I found with it. If you've ever watched Robin on podcasts, and the My Time Capsule one was really good fun, which was really funny. And he recently, or maybe a while ago now, but I watched it recently, he did a podcast with Richard Herring on his, which was okay, which was a good one. It was a good one. I'm not sure. Sometimes Richard Herring, it's I don't know. It's a difficult one. It depends how they kind of gel. And like sometimes I've watched Richard Herring podcasts and him and the person gel incredibly well, and it just flows really well. I think it was just two people who wanted to talk, probably a bit, over each other a little bit, but it was really good fun. And seek that one out. It is good fun. So I'm just going to talk to you about some of the funny things that I saw and some of the interesting things that I found from the commentaries. Now, one of the big things that kept coming up in the commentaries as we went through all of the films, and I was kind of keep referring back to my box set, but was that, like, I always imagined that Timmy Lee and Sid Nugget were like best friends, but it was more a kind of almost like a marriage of convenience. Like they weren't like best pals. Like Tony Booth and Robin Askwith weren't like best pals, but they knew that they had a great chemistry, and they made that work for the films. And I wonder how many people are like that, where we kind of have them as a pair or a double act, and we think, oh, they must be absolutely amazing friends. And I don't mean like they started off as great friends like Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis and then just sort of fell out because of just being with each other all the time, or even Laurel and Hardy. You hear things, and obviously if you're with somebody all the time, it can be a challenge. But I just mean in terms of not really gelling at the start, but having screen chemistry. I can't think of many other examples of that to prove my point, but I do think it's interesting that as we went through, he didn't have Robin Askwith did not have one bad thing to say about Tony Booth in the commentaries or in the book. Just was very honest about the fact that they just weren't like, in each other's lives beyond the films. So I find that quite interesting, because that almost reflects a little bit about how maybe I read a quote recently where Robin Askwith had said that he played the character almost too well, so well that he's connected with that character, not in a way where he's like, he's sad about it, because he's happy to talk about it from what I've seen, but just sort of along the lines of, that's what all that people saw me as. I guess we call that typecasting, don't we? But as I go through his book and I realize the quality of actor he is, I think to be able to be that good, certainly a physical comedy, and comedy is certainly often seen as easier than dramatic acting, when it's the exact opposite. From little plays and things that I've not done as an actor, but I've kind of helped with young people doing plays and things like that, making it funny is a lot harder than it is to kind of get a serious a serious point across. And it is really tricky to sort of, I think, people to get people to give people credit for the comedy that they did, particularly if it's something that was sneered at the time. And I've said this to somebody recently about Confessions, that one thing that came across the commentaries, all of the commentaries, is how much fun everybody had on them, how well everybody got on, but how kind of looked down upon and righteous indignation against the films and the type of films. And certainly in the documentary, the Saucy documentary that was on Channel 4, which is absolutely brilliant. If you haven't seen that, check it out. The issue, it seems to be that there was obviously this sexual stuff, and it's risque and naughty and silly, and I think really harmless. But all the people who were kind of railing against it and, oh, this is wrong, and a lot of the people who were seen as mainstream and clean cut and all that, they're all your Operation YouTube people who've all turned out to be absolute scumbags. So, there's a lot to be said for naughty, silly, and the same goes for Carry On films as well. There's a lot of stories about, just them all getting on and having a great time and being no sort of shenanigans that weren't just overtly silly shenanigans, and that were all consensual and fine, from what I hear. So I think that's an interesting point, and that comes across a lot during the commentaries. Robin seems to remember every single co-star, every single person that's been in the film, and give you a little story about them, how they were on the stage, how they've done a stage performance, or what they did, or how they got on, or how awkward it was wearing certain costumes or not wearing certain costumes, or physical stuff that they had to do. And it just sounds like almost that freedom of expression and daft silliness and Seaside Postcard sort of style has led to it being not only, I think, quite harmless in an age where you can switch on your phone or television and watch all kinds of wild stuff. Even if you're a kid, you can find it quite quickly, I'm sure. This seems very innocent. Some things haven't aged perfectly, but it seems so innocent in comparison, but not at the time. So I think it's really cool that we're kind of, getting these box sets. We're getting these wonderful things from Indicator. We're getting these autobiographies. We're getting lots of appreciation for the fun side of British cinema. It hasn't been replicated. It maybe can't be. I don't know. When was the last? I mean, the In-Betweeners movies, all I can think of are like British comedies that were big. And you can't underestimate how massive these films were and are, particularly around the world in different countries as well. So I am really into espousing the values of these films as a good, wholesome, fun time. Now, yes, there may be things in it that might make you go, but let's put that to one side, because they are a time capsule of their time. They are bags of fun, really funny. And one thing I really do want to put across is the sort of physical stuff that Robin Askwith had to do. He explains them so well in the commentary. So it's really worth checking out the commentaries in the Indicator set. Let me just say hi to some people who are watching live in the chat. John Shelton's here, award-winning Godzilla filmmaker, Godzilla documentary. Well done. Kayla Boo is here. Good morning, Kayla. How are you? I say good morning. It's afternoon here in the UK. I don't know why I say good morning. And Al Lacard is here as well, and he hasn't seen any of these. So what would you say to somebody who hasn't seen these before, other than watch them? So I'm going to share just a few of the things. I mean, I know Al, and I know he's watched a lot of Carry On films. They're not a million miles away. I seem to be a bit surprised. I was a bit surprised when I watched the versions on the box set and realized how much full frontal nudity was in there. Now, obviously, you wouldn't get that in, I think maybe Carry On Emmanuel, but and that is a sad film. Carry On Emmanuel makes me sad. Just get Kenneth Williams' shriveled body, and oh my word, it just makes me sad. But and to be fair, so do the Adventures films as well. Please don't. They make me sad as well. I always got the impression that he didn't really want to be there. Whereas, like, one thing you can say about Robin Askwith is he throws himself into these things, and some of the stories that I'll kind of share will go for that. Whether it's a rubber pipe stuck stuck in, let's say, uncomfortable places, whether it's skin irritation from bubbles. All of these things are absolutely hilarious to hear about firsthand. And I there's not a lot of the things. I feel like maybe what he's in a position where he's said these things so many times in audiences with that it's become quite smooth and quite easy for him to explain to people, and the stories might sound familiar. But actually, from reading the book, and the book was, I think, late 90s, and I think it was kind of trying to be popular along the side of when like lad mags were popular. Maybe they were trying to put those two things together, whereas the Indicator box set's 2024, so it's a different lens through it as well. And one thing that really makes me happy is he's not going in every single thing, oh, you won't be able to do that now, oh, you won't be able to do that now. Like, he talks about, which drives me bonkers, like stuff like that, because not because it's like, oh, you know, ooh, because of woke and all that. No, not doesn't drive. I just don't care. It's just boring to hear people say, "Oh, you won't be able to do that now. Oh, you can't do that now." He doesn't do that, and what he talks about is like modern. He's got a modern sensibility when it comes to comedy as well. So, like, he'll talk about what Stuart Lee thinks of certain films, or who's a friend of his, which comes out in the commentaries quite a lot. And I think he's quite proud of being friends with Stuart Lee, because I'd imagine Stuart Lee doesn't, you know, not the most social person in the world, but I'm a fan of his comedy. And what else does he do that I think is quite, you know, worth? Oh yeah, he doesn't say we can't, you know, we can't do this now, we can't do this now. He talks about Inside Number 9 and things like that, and you know, um, you know, I find it quite refreshing that there's no sort of bitter element to these things, because sometimes what you'll find is when somebody is very famous for one role and they're doing a commentary for it, they'll go one of two ways, which is like, I am that person now and this is all I can talk about, or I am so fed up of talking about this and I hate it and I hate everything about it. So he doesn't go either of those ways. I think he's got quite a good, I mean, he has gone on and done other things as well, which helps. And you know, he's in a couple of Pete Walker films. I'm a massive Pete Walker's horror stuff, I think is fantastic. Let's see. Linda Hayden fan. Well, yes, if you watch my little opening video, there's a picture of Robin Askwith. You know, he talks so fondly of Linda Hayden. They were boyfriend and girlfriend for a while, and when he was recording the audio commentaries, he was saying that he stayed at her and her husband's house, you know, while he was recording, because he lives on an island, and I can't remember what the island is. Is it Gibraltar? Is it Gibraltar? I think he lives in Gibraltar. Yes, there are plenty of streamers who will be wanting to watch this, so video tasties who watch this kind of stuff, because you know, it is that saucy British humor. I don't think we could have. We're not very good at sexy, but we're good at saucy. I think that's the British way. I think wobbly, randy gits is more our thing than like, ooh, check me out. I'm so like, I just don't think we can take that seriously very much. And we have our, you know, debonair David Niven types, don't get me wrong, but that's, you know, kind of almost a Hollywoodized British person. The average British person's probably more Robin Askwith than David Niven, I would say, or certainly Robin Askwith, more Timmy Lee, because I don't think, you know, because I think the idea, I think what he says a lot in the commentary is the idea that the joke is on Timmy. Timmy is not randy all the time, chasing women like salaciously. These things situations tend to fall in Timmy's lap, and he's not quite sure what to do with them. And then in the end, he's like, all right, then, in for a penny, in for a pound, kind of thing. And I think that's what makes it still work now. I think if he was like, maybe it's the reason why we're not all like, oh, you know, everyone just going crazy about Benny Hill still, because a lot of Benny Hill's just like just chasing women around and trying to grab them. You know, Timmy looks like he doesn't know what to do in certain situations, and that is very endearing. And I think that's the perfect note to take on that character, and the perfect way of handling that character. I like how Timmy's character is, and also you can identify as just a bog standard human being from Great Britain. You can identify with someone like that more than you can, you know, hello ladies, and clicking your fingers and like James Bond. Everybody would love to be James Bond. but there's only a couple of people who are like James Bond. Most people can look at Timmy Lee and go, "Oh, well, maybe one day be beautiful women will just fall at my feet, and I won't know why." It could happen. I'm not saying that for me. I'm happily married, but you get my point. So I just wanted to take you through some of the key bits. One of the things I thought was really interesting was the people on his football team, on Robin Askwith's football team. So we're moving away from Timmy a little bit, and I've talked a bit about the commentaries, and I might go back to those in a bit and just jump around a little bit. But that he had this kind of football team that with celebrities and footballers on it. He had a big friendship with a footballer called Stan Bowles, who was a pretty skillful player. This is of the era where footballers would be almost like smoking a fag. Well, they would be smoking a fag at halftime, smoking a cigarette at halftime, having a drink, before and after the game. Just kind of very different than the athletes that we have now, and not necessarily different in a bad way. So, like, this is the kind of hard man era as well. Tommy Smith and Chopper Harris and Breaking Legs, and then on the other side of it, your Fancy Dans, your George Best, your Stan Bowles, your Frank Worthingtons. So you've got a really interesting Charlie George. And Charlie George, if you Google Charlie George, kind of has a look of Robin Askwith. I wonder who had the hair first. So there's a lot of talk of football in the book. Don't let that put you off, though, because a lot of the celebrities that are in that team with him are quite interesting as well. And I don't want to give too many spoilers, because you can probably buy the book quite cheaply secondhand and watch it yourself. The glowing. There's nobody where you read it where he's just like absolutely slagging them off, and that's probably because he's got just that way of getting on with people and enjoying people, which I think comes across in the performance. So, we'll talk about, Linda Bellingham and a long-term friendship with her and some of the funny improvisations that she added to her character. He'll talk about, the props man and the special effects character people, like the makeup man who, had to put makeup on him and was saying like, makeup on his bottom and things, and said, "Oh, I never had this trouble with Richard Harris," and stuff like that. It's just these lovely, yes, if you like name dropping, and if you like, and only because he's met and been around these people, but I think a lot of people in the theatre, I think it becomes second nature that every other word is like a famous person or somebody, a darling that they love, But as I was looking through, I just got a really just got a really warm feeling. Well, even that, sounds a bit dodgy, but no, it was just a nice friendship-based book. So even the people who we didn't spend a lot of time with in terms of friendship-wise, Tony Booth and Bill Maynard and people like that, nothing bad to say about them. There's just like some people were a bit more work a day, and some people went out and were off drinking and carousing. There's a story in the book about Robin and I think Richard O'Brien. Not Richard O'Brien. I'm not saying Richard O'Brien. Am I thinking of Richard O'Brien's the Richard O'Sullivan? Yeah, Richard O'Brien's the Crystal Maze and thingy, Rocky Horror. But yeah, Richard O'Sullivan and him, and kind of talking themselves out of spending the night in prison over just doing daft stuff, or and it's never anything. It's always things that are like really tame, that are probably 10 times happening worse now on nights out across the UK. But I just love hearing about all these names, and I love the sort of the kind, and like he's like a fan with some people. So like Irene Handel, who'd been around for a long time in films, and was just such a strange character in terms of wanting a little dog to be in the film and stuff like that, and like driving the car and then him realizing that she can't drive, just stuff like that, and how cute she seemed and how much she wanted to have like a nude scene with him. And it was just like you could tell from the audio commentary and from the book how much love he had for these people and for proper British stars, and like John Le Mesurier, and talking about how you didn't know how amazing he was as an actor until you acted with him and realized how naturalistic it was, and how special a talent he was. And if you think of like Dad's Army, that definitely comes across, and that there's something special about the way he acted. So here, just to give you an example of the charity football match, some of these you might recognize from football if you're a football head, or some of these you'll recognize from films if you're a film fan. So Stan Bowles, Frank McClintock, Dave Webb, John Thor, so and sort of a distant family friend, obviously passed away now, Dennis Waterman, Robert Lindsay, Richard O'Sullivan, Robert Powell, yes, Jesus was on his football team, Rocky Taylor, Jimmy Hill, no, that's Bruce Forsyth, and Tony Selby. And so can you tell me anyone who's in your team? The charity person said to him. I don't seem to recognise any of them. And he said, certainly we've got Sir Alec Guinness on the right wing and Sir Dame Edith Evans in goal. Oh, well, apart from them. I just love it. This is not the goal you want to score in, you know. Just love that. So this is of the era of like Robert Powell and people like marrying Pan's People. If you don't know who Pan's People are, ask your granddad. They were like a dancing troupe. Well, in fact, just ask me because I'm telling you are. Like a dance troupe that were on before there was real videos to songs that were in the charts. They had like a group of young ladies dance around to it. And anyway, and then that night he proposed to her. This is when he proposed to his lady who was in the Pan's People. And then he found out later that week he would be playing Jesus in Zefferelli's Jesus of Nazareth. So it's just a hop, skip, and a jump from Confessions to Jesus of Nazareth. And I don't know which is your favourite. I do like Holiday Camp, mainly because I suppose I've got more experience of going to holiday camps as a kid than I have of the other situations. I've never been a window cleaner. What else have I've never been a driving instructor. However, I was a terrible pupil at driving when I was learning to drive. Don't ask me how many times it took me to pass my test. And what else? What have I missed there? Driving instructor, window cleaner, pop performer. I've never been a pop performer, shockingly. So yeah, I guess holiday camp is something I really identify with more. I did find it I think it's one of the funnier ones as well. So a lot of the behind the scenes stuff about, you know, the sexy stuff being the least sexy part of it, I think is fantastic. The section all about going to make the film Queen Kong, which you can watch on YouTube, but has never actually been officially released. I know Robin Askwith says don't watch it, like it's a bad film. It's not just like a bad film, but it's like a film that you shouldn't watch. It's terrible. And I've never seen Queen Kong. And Robin, if you are watching, which you're probably not, but if you are watching, I might watch Queen Kong. Yeah, I just feel like the more somebody tells me not to watch something, I guess I want to watch it. What an awkward bastard I am. It goes through so much, you know, like, and you know, certainly it jumps straight to the things you want to know about the book. You know, it really is a time capsule of the 70s and early 80s. There's some great pictures in there, as you may have seen, and I really am fascinated by what other people think about the box set after watching them all. And I wish I had access to people who have seen them for the first time and what they thought of them, or whether they were just like, surely nobody is having a moral panic about these films in 2024. You know, it is. There is a bit of. I was just thinking, it's not. Is it mainly physical comedy? There is some word play in there as well. There is some funny stuff. There is some set pieces that don't necessarily just rely on, you know, on physical comedy. But there's a bit that I put in another edit in my playlist, and it just shows you the difference, I think, between somebody who is really talented at physical comedy and, you know, just adding that extra certain. I don't know what, that certain je ne sais quoi to it. There's a bit where somebody hits Timmy and he starts climbing up the person's body as they hit him, this guy. And then he sort of slips and falls back. The way he slips and falls back gets a chuckle out of me every single time. It's hard to get a chuckle out of me these days. It's difficult. So I just think there's the real nuance to the performances that maybe seems a bit silly for me to even mention because we're like, oh, it's confessions. But there's a lot of really funny stuff, and it is driven by Robin Askwith. I've become, I think, even a bigger fan through rewatching the Confessions film recently, and possibly reading the book. You know, bearing in mind, and I think he mentions this a lot, and maybe sometimes you need to when you're being pigeonholed, but like, you know, the awards that he's won for other things, you know, certainly being on the stage and things like that. So, and also the Bless This House movie, I think, is good fun as well. I know he took over a role in that, but it is worth watching if you haven't seen the Bless This House movie. I believe that is available free on YouTube as well. And one thing I'm disappointed that I missed out on is that there was like 30-week, 40-week tours of the UK, the Further Confessions of a Window Cleaner tour. Like, these were like in places like Great Yarmouth and Summer Seasons and things like that. Now, speaking of somebody who, as a kid, I'll list some of the things I saw around Blackpool, Southport, and places like that. So all I've seen, like Chuckle Brothers, Cannonball, Brian Conley, Michael Barrymore, Joe Longthorne. Oh yeah, I'm just name dropping now. Literally sat Keith Harrison Orville. My famous Keith Harrison Orville story, where I ended up stopping the show as a very small child because I was obsessed with Orville and tried to climb and get to Orville, but there was a big pit where the orchestra were playing, and I fell as a very small child down this orchestra pit, and then they had to like cart me out, and they had to get all the ambulance people and St. John's ambulance people and take me out, and it actually stopped Keith Harrison Orville and Cuddles for a while, because I was just like, oh my god, it was like Orville mania. But to go back to my point, I missed out on these, but I don't think my mum and dad would have took me even in the 80s. I'd have been too young. They wouldn't have taken me to the Confessions summer season. But I wonder why that was. I wonder why we saw more things like that now. I guess we are, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, you know, are we not watching plays of Only Fools and Horses? Are we not watching Back to the Future and play? In fact, most big plays have come from films or TV shows, haven't they? But not necessarily. I'm talking about like this kind of, there's a slight difference, isn't it? It's not really a play. It's more like a summer season. So I love the idea of that. You know, if we can kind of bring back that review show, go around the country, and maybe podcast shows or something like that as well. I was just thinking as I was saying that, maybe that's what the new version of that is. You know, you watch a podcast, you hear someone chat away on a podcast, and then you go and watch them. You go and watch them do the podcast live, and maybe that's something similar. So there's a real fun and humanity, and I know he talks a lot about having polio as a child and how that has made him more like, when he got confidence, wanting to kind of, he wasn't embarrassed about showing his body. It was almost like, well, I look okay now, and I'm kind of quite happy to show it off because, you know, I've had such a tough time of it. Well, let's catch up now on the chat a little bit. Oh yeah, the Linda Hayden comment from Al. I've shared this out. Thank you, John. Oh, the amazing Live Style Rewind is doing so well on her channel, and I just think these, Liv, would be right up your street, these films. There's a couple of them that are in my playlist. They're just so much fun. They're just silly, naughty fun. You know, it's not going to win the Oscar, but it might win your heart. No, it might it might make you smile. So I just wanted to share a few other things from it, really. And, you know, this ensemble idea, like the Carry On and things like this, there used to be so many, you know, mainstream British actors who ended up doing these films, not because they were falling on hard times, which might be how it's sometimes presented, but more to do with they asked to be in it because they were so ridiculously successful. Just look at the amount of money these films made around the world. So we've, you know, and bear in mind, this is Confessions films. This isn't, you know, Carry On, where you've got, you know, 20 odd, 30 odd films. You've got 4 films here, And it's I think they had plans for another one, which then ended up becoming one of the Adventures series. So we've got Confessions of a Window Cleaner, Confessions of a Pop Performer, Confessions of a Driving Instructor, and Confessions from a Holiday Camp. I always accidentally call that Confessions of a Holiday Camp, but obviously that's not the character, is it? But yeah, there's only 4 films there, and to have that kind of shelf life, and I don't think, and I know Indicator probably won't thank me for saying this, if not that anyone from Indicator will be watching, but I think they're doing a box set of the Adventures films, and like I said before, it just doesn't have that same magic for me. I always feel like it's Barry Evans, isn't it, that just didn't want to be there as much, and they just seemed a little grimier. I don't know if you've ever seen Don't Open Till Christmas. There's a kind of griminess with that film that kind of feels the same. There doesn't seem to be, and I guess it's maybe the film stock and the scale of this. This is a major studio film. These are major studio films. So these were filmed at, Pinewood, and filmed on the same stages as Star Wars. There's the famous story of David Prowse, who was in some background stuff in here. Robin Askwith suggesting to him that he played the Darth Vader rather than Chewbacca, because if they were going to Tunisia and it was going to be hot, you don't want to be in a big hairy suit. So like literally Timmy Lee is instrumental in David Prowse being Darth Vader. So funny. And he does like an impression of him, because David Prowse, has that North Country accent as well, which is quite funny. The love for the co-stars, and never once when he's talking about obviously talks about bums and boobs and bonking and things like this a lot in the commentaries. Never once does it come across like sleazy. I don't know how he does it. It doesn't come across like sleazy. In fact, it comes across like, oh man, here we go again. Like we had to do this again. And I think it's that kind of openness and friendliness and harmlessness that made the female actors comfortable with him, and therefore they had fun with it too. So, sometimes you watch a film and you just think, oh, I bet they're not enjoying that. And the funny thing is, some of the big films that you will have seen and that you will have loved, like say The Exorcist or let's see, The Shining, some of those, female characters in those films that have got wonderful performances have been absolutely terrorized, been terrorized by the director and their vision. Look at Uma Thurman being kind of harangued into going into a car that she was told would be safe when it should have been a stunt person, and then hurting herself. Like these things weren't happening on Confessions. If anything was going to happen, any injury was going to happen, it was probably going to happen to Robin Askwith, because he was throwing himself headfirst into everything. But yeah, let's have a look. Let's see. What in the Batman performance? I know. I think we should start our own band, Mike. And if watching this film is anything to go off, we'll have a great time. Yeah, we'll call it Kipper. How about that? Yeah, me too. In fact, I was having a bit of a nosy about buying some of the VHSs, and then I stopped myself. I know that quite hard to get hold of. I know when I watched Confessions of a Driving Instructor on Video Tasty's channel, I think that's the only one he's got. And let's have a look. Check them out. Confessions of a Shopaholic, Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen. Yeah, I haven't seen either of those. I'm not against seeing them. I don't know what they're about. I don't know who's in them. Let me guess. Is Anne Hathaway in them? Not the sort of the ancient person from history, but the actress. Yeah. So I can't watch The Shining. I don't care. Yeah, it is. It's true. It is true that we have this kind of ability, or some of us do certainly, to kind of push things to one side and pretend that they didn't happen or that they were okay, because they're good, because the films are good. But like, unacceptable behavior is unacceptable behavior, is it not? I don't know. If you hurt somebody, like if it was my mum or my sister, I might be upset about it. Like Strange. It's strange, isn't it? Well, obviously, if you're an empathetic person and you're like, it might be hard to watch some of these things. So I get that too. Yeah, I understand that. The first time I saw these on British terrestrial TV, I think when Channel 5 was launched and they had a late night movie, I think they were putting them on. I think when they were just trying to grab at the figures. I think there was a few, Shannon Weary and what's the one who's married to Gene Simmons called Shannon, another Shannon Tweed, and then they'd have like a confessions film on quite late. I think because they were just trying to get the audience share away from the big four channels and they weren't showing them. Oh, Isla Fisher and Lindsay Lohan. Okay, I like Isla Fisher. I remember Isla Fisher from Home and Away. She's good. Lindsay Lohan, she's okay. Somebody's spider senses, somebody's saucy senses were tingling. Gareth. So yeah, I have got, and I don't know if this one's going to get framed for me. I've got like a list of about 5 or 6 posters that I want framing for Christmas. That's all I've asked for people for my birthday and Christmas. And one of them I sneaked into the pile was a confessions poster. Now, I don't know if my friends and family are going to do that for me because some of the other ones are a little bit more, acceptable. I'm not saying that they're all like classy movies or anything. Most of them are like, as you all probably know if you watch this channel, like Star Crash or something like that. I've got a really cool Spanish basket case poster as well. So we'll see. We'll see if I can. If one day I'll have a really big poster behind me. That was an unfortunate pause, wasn't it? UK Living. Oh my word. Yeah, the UK Living channel. I wouldn't know about that. I wouldn't know about that, Father. So, to surmise, I wasn't planning on doing like a full hour on these, but I just wanted to mention some of the key things that came out of those commentaries, and I'd recommend listening to all 4 of them. Like I said earlier on, the kind of the love and the friendship between everybody on there, the lack of like best palsness between Robin Askwith and Tony Booth, which I thought kind of makes me just think that they were more professional than maybe people might think. The strange football teams that Robin Askwith had, the amount of booze and carousing that they did, but yet the amount of innocent stuff that they got up to is actually quite sweet when you read the book. And I've seen the book now is quite, because it's been out a good few years, maybe 10 years or so. It's quite cheap to get hold of, and it's really worth. I really recommend having a look at it. I wonder if there's like a word count for how many times he uses the word bum or bonk on there. I don't know. I wonder. I haven't actually got right to the last page yet. Oh, it has famous people in there, so that's interesting. But like, because he is a name dropper of certain renown, the amount of names in the index is insane. I'll just go through some of these names. So if you're interested in any of these people, you might well find out. And this like stunt performers in there. So if you've kind of been watching Gareth's channel and watching different stunt performers on there, some of them, I think one of them definitely pops up in here. But I'll just tell you some of the names, okay, who might pop up and you might be surprised about. So Michael Barrymore, Alan Bates, Richard Beckinsale, Howell Bennett, Michael Bentine, Lionel Blair, Dirk Bogarde, Mark Bolan, Tony Booth, as I say, Ian Botham, Stan Bowles, Kenneth Branagh, Bernard Bresslaw, Miriam Margolyes. Great story about Miriam Margolyes in here as well. Convincing one of the actors that they had to have sex for real and scaring him to death. It was really funny. Bernard Bresslaw, I've said. Peter Butterworth, the much underrated Peter Butterworth. Let's see. Let's keep going. Who else have we got in here? Dick Clement, Ian Lafreniere, Brian Clough. My dad's old sergeant in the army, Brian Clough. Let's see. Phil Collins, Kenneth Connor, Peter Cook. Bloody Peter Cook. I love Peter Cook. Love Pete and Dud. Let's see. Keep going, Matthew. There's so many. Roger Daltrey, Dino De Laurentiis, Mickey Dolans was in his football team for the Monkeys. Diana Dawes, Michelle Dotrice, Leslie Ann Down. Reggie Dwight. Do you know who Reggie Dwight is? Put it in the comments if you know who Reggie Dwight was. His friend Reggie Dwight. Jimmy Edwards. Britt Eklund. Oh, wow. Britt Eklund. Been watching a lot of her recently in The Wicker Man. Let's see. David Essex. Trevor Eve. Marianne Faithfull. Mia Farrow. Peter Fonda. Brinsley Ford. Harrison Ford. Oh, you're saying that everybody fancied Harrison Ford. I mean, I could go on. Judy and Sally Geeson. Michael Gambon. Most people will know as Dumbledore now. If you're Harry Potter inclined. Oh, Susan George. My all-time favorite actress. Melvin Hayes. Richard Harris, one of my favorite actors of all time. I could just literally go on and on and on. And I will. Paul McCartney. Honestly, the guy is the one of, I don't know. Can you think of anyone whose autobiography is more name droppy? And it's all kind of in context as well. It's not just like saying someone's name for what as the kids say these days, clout. It's just like often funny stories about them. Sometimes it's just to say the name. Don't get me wrong, but I do find it quite endearing. So, oh, by the way, Reggie Dwight, Elton John, or as Alan Partridge said, to give him his real name, Harry Webb. So, do I recommend the Indicator box set after watching every single thing? The only thing I've not watched on there is an extra film. There's an extra film on there called Rosie. I nearly said something terrible then. Rosie Dixon. I nearly went through every offensive Rosie I could think of. A Rosie Dixon Night Nurse film. I haven't watched that yet, but I've watched every other extra on there as well. And you might be able to get it a bit cheaper now. It's been out a while if you haven't got it yet. I'm sure you can get it in the US. And as I say, there are a few of them available on I've made a playlist of everything I can find about Confessions. It's on my channel. And it is probably my most popular part of my whole channel. People love the stuff that I do on Confessions because I think they just have the same feeling about it as I do. And that's just really heartening that, we live in a world where people are going, oh, this, that, you can't say this and you can't do that. Do you know what? This is a little corner of the internet, that one little playlist where we can just have a bit of fun and talk about silly films with no massive moral discussion about it. If you don't like it, don't watch them. Otherwise, watch them and have fun because I can't wait. I want to do some more watch parties of them. Want to kind of dive into maybe do a watch party on Queen Kong. I don't know. Who could I inflict Queen Kong on? Which YouTuber channel shall I ask to watch Queen Kong with me? What have they done to deserve this in the way of in the words of Neil Tennant? Well, Chris Tennant, not Neil Tennant. Who's Neil Tennant? No, Neil Tennant. I was right the first time. Oh my word. I think my brain is... I would not be able to write a book and name drop because I just wouldn't get everybody's name right. I used to be like IMDb, Mr. IMDb, but now I can barely remember someone's first name and surname. So if you want to hear about, little stories about fresh-faced Al Pacino, that's another one I forgot to tell about, a young fresh-faced Al Pacino who he meets in the book, and you want to hear about British comedy at possibly one of the most successful times to be watching British comedy, check out Robin Askwith's autobiography book. It is called The Confessions of Robin Askwith. The window cleaner reveals all. And if you don't mind sparing a few quid, it's really worth getting the box set. I think there's 5,000 of them available. Don't buy all 5,000. We can't. I bought one of them. So I hope you've enjoyed this little trip down memory lane. And well, I don't know what. I think mine's just age. I think it's just age. I think it's just my brain is addled. I've got lots of reasons in the past, lots of blows to the head, maybe. I don't know. Lots of smacking myself on the head accidentally. Lots of things that you would possibly see Timmy Lee do. I was kind of like a young Timmy Lee, but without the women throwing themselves at him. I was just a clumsy sod that was always getting in scrapes. But sadly, none of them were worth making a movie out of. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows the reason why I can't remember anything. But one thing's for sure. I am really pleased to have bought all these little things. If I do get the poster, I'll do a stream and show you my. Sorry, if I do get it framed, I'll show you my posters. I'll get hold of a few other things. I'm collecting memorabilia for a few things at the moment. I'm trying not to go too far down the sort of the hyper focus, which I have about certain things for a while, and then I go on to the next thing. And at the moment, I'm really into my Star Crash. I've literally made a video on everything I own to do with Star Crash, and I've bought things since I made the video. It's ridiculous. Posters will be going up, and there's going to be some really, really cool ones. Like I said, I bought some really cool Spanish ones. So if there's a Robin Askwith film or a Confessions film that you'd like me to stream on the channel and do a little commentary chat with, or you want to be involved in one and join me on one of them, feel free. I would love to have you. And until I see you again, don't get into too much randy, naughty, saucy trouble. Don't be getting your old get anything trapped in a window while getting your end away or anything like that. I don't want to hear anything like that happening to you. Don't be influenced by what you see on TV. Don't be swimming around in soap suds with ladies on the floor of the kitchen, or getting up to all kinds of things on your driving test, or nakedly having it off in a golf bunker. These things, you will get in trouble for doing them in real life. It's just fiction, so just be careful out there. Okay. Do you want to be funny if when they were doing the thing like Marilyn Manson and South Park have caused this to happen and all this kind of stuff, or satanic panic and video nasties? They were just like, the Confessions films would cause many people to be running around and showing their bare bottoms on golf courses. This must be stopped. All right, thank you so much. Well, a little bit of saucy trouble, you're fine. You can have as much saucy trouble as you want. Certainly, yeah, you have my blessing. So guys, enjoy any Confessions films. I really am interested on your feedback on what you think of these films. Even if you're watching this, if you're hate watching this, then you're a strange person. But if you're a hate watching this because you either hate me or you hate Robin Askwith's films, then tell me why. I'm really interested. It should, I was just having this conversation the other day. It's really good to hear opposing views in a civil way, like without getting angry and rude, to each other. We can just have a disagreement if that's so. If you've watched these and been like, what did you even see in these, Matt? Tell me what it was you didn't like and what should I watch instead? Give me an alternative. I've got nothing else. I've only got 4 films in my house to watch, and then they're all Confessions films. So what should I watch instead? All right, guys. Enjoy. Have a wonderful rest of your day, the rest of your Wednesday. It's Wednesday here, but if you're watching this in the future, you can have a good time any day of the week. And thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. Thanks to all the people who joined in the chat. Thanks, Liv, Mike, Gareth. Who else have we got? John, Al, Kayla. So many people who popped in who are just awesome people. If you've seen their name pop up on the screen, just type in the name of their channel, subscribe to their channel, and you'll enjoy it. They all happen to be people that I subscribe to. So, yeah, do that. And once again, there's a little clip at the end for me as I go off and try and clean some windows somewhere without, accidentally losing all my clothes. So, on that horrible thought, goodbye.